All right, let's jump right in. We're looking at some material today that makes a pretty bold claim that our century, the 21st century, isn't just another page in the history books. Nope. The idea here is that this is the pivotal century for humanity. What we do right now in the next few decades, well, it could literally decide the future of everything.
And right off the bat, it hits us with this huge question. Are we headed for a glorious future? Or a ghastly one? The point is, we're not just slowly moving along. We are at a fork in the road, a massive one. And the two paths ahead couldn't be more different. One is amazing, almost beyond belief. The other is a total nightmare. And it's not just abstract. The source puts some pretty jaw-dropping numbers on it. Picture this. One future has 10 billion of us, thriving, where we've basically eliminated suffering. Then there's the other future, a total collapse, with our population crashing down to just 1 billion. We're talking about self-annihilation. The difference between those two is, it's just massive.
So, to really get a handle on what's at stake, we've got to look at both sides. Let's start with the less sunny outlook, the case for despair. This is the argument that warns us about what could happen if things go wrong. And believe me, it's a pretty heavy vision. So, one leading philosopher mentioned here lays out a really grim scenario. They're talking about a potential population crash from 10 billion all the way down to less than 1 billion. And why? Well, the reasons are probably familiar to all of us. Our own mistakes, pandemics, maybe nuclear war, and of course the big one, climate change. And this next quote, wow, it really gets to the heart of that pessimism. You've got an eminent cosmologist looking at all of human history, everything we've ever done, and saying, you know what? The only form of life we've created is purely destructive. That is a heavy, heavy critique. It's basically saying maybe we are the problem. Then there's this other thinker, a public intellectual, who argues that our whole modern world is basically built on illusions. We're just caught up in consumerism, corporate power, that we're basically a dying civilization. And the warning is that reality is going to come knocking, hard. Either we face a painful crash back to reality, or we end up with some kind of despotism, all because we can't give up our comfy but totally unsustainable way of life. Okay, so if you follow this pessimistic train of thought all the way to the end of the line, you get to a pretty extreme idea. It's a concept called antinatalism, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a philosophical view that seriously questions whether it's even ethical to have children at all. And the logic goes something like this. If every birth is just a death in waiting, and life is just this long struggle sandwiched between birth and death, well, maybe the most humane thing to do is to just stop procreating. Why bring more people into a world that's filled with so much suffering? It's really the ultimate pessimistic conclusion, isn't it? Okay, that was a lot, but that's only half the story. Now let's flip the script completely, because the source imagines a totally different future, one that's not about despair at all. It's about divinity. Yeah, I said divinity, and the contrast here is just stunning. We're not talking about just making things a little bit better. We're talking about a future where science and technology push humanity to a whole new level. A level that, our ancestors would have literally thought of as being gods. The source actually quotes the historian Yuval Noah Harari on this. His argument is, look, we've basically tackled famine, plague, and war. So what's next on our to-do list? Overcoming old age and death. Seriously, the idea is to upgrade ourselves from Homo sapiens to Homo Deus, from wise man to God man, a full-on scientific attempt at achieving immortality. And this isn't just science fiction talk. There's a potential roadmap. Think about it. In the last century alone, we doubled our average lifespan to about 70. The next step? Double it again to 150. The source mentions visionaries who are actually funding research to get us to lifespans of 500 years. The end goal? Biological immortality, getting rid of involuntary death.
Now, a key point here is that this isn't just for a handful of billionaires. The optimistic view is that we can create abundance for everyone. Technology could make all the things that are now luxuries, goods, services, available to every single person on Earth. We could essentially end poverty and want for good. So, there you have it. Two wildly different futures. A total collapse on one side and a godlike existence on the other. So how do we get to the good one and avoid the bad one? Well, the source suggests a framework, a plan of attack for how we can solve the biggest problems standing in our way. And it boils them down to what it calls the big 5 problems. So what are they? First up,
poverty. Then brain drain, talented people leaving their homes. Third is authoritarianism, which the text links to this idea of taqlid, or just blind faith. Fourth on the list is patriarchy, which holds back half our population. And finally, politicization, the thing that drives so much conflict and war. And the proposed solution to tackle these 5 big issues is a framework called BioIslam. It's described as this blend of being pro-science, but also spiritually guided. The idea is to use technology and reason, but within a kind of moral or spiritual compass to solve these problems. And the source makes a point of saying this isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's based on solid research that's all cited in the footnotes. So, we've seen the depths of despair and the heights of optimism. Where does that leave us? Well, the source doesn't just hand us a neat little answer. It actually does the opposite. It leans right into how uncertain and complex our situation really is. And this really sums it up perfectly. You have the pessimistic camp, with thinkers like Gray and Benatar, predicting dystopia, collapse, a loss of all meaning. And then you have the optimistic camp, with thinkers like Harari and Morris, predicting we'll become like demigods, achieve immortality, and create incredible abundance. Our entire century seems to be caught in this tug-of-war between these 2 huge ideas. But then, the source throws a real curveball. It asks, what if these futures aren't separate paths? What if they're connected? And this is a really chilling thought. What if our very attempt to become gods, achieving immortality and all that, is the very thing that could cause our downfall? What if that power leads us straight into the dystopian nightmare the pessimists are warning us about? It's a classic case of be careful what you wish for. And that brings us to the very end. The final takeaway is that nobody really knows which future will win out, or when. The question is just too big, too heavy for us to answer. The future isn't set in stone, it's still unwritten. And so the source leaves us with a phrase often used by Muslims, Allahu Alam, which means God knows best. In the end, it seems the choice is still very much in our hands.